WRJN, welcome to the morning news. 71 degrees right now, looking for a high of 83 by the lake, 86 degrees inland. Free movie night coming to the Racine Public Library. It's going to be coming up on the 23rd of July. The movie is called Birth Story, Ina Mae Gaskin and the Farm Midwives. It's going to be at 6 p.m. on the 23rd, which is Monday night, if I'm not mistaken, at the Racine Public Library. And the event is going to be hosted by a group called Birth Doulas of Racine and Kenosha. Now, we have the individual who is the co-founder of Birth Doulas of Racine and Kenosha. So basically what we have is people who assist in births in our area who act in a midwifely situation. And one of them joining us right now in the morning news is Laura Jansson. Good morning, Laura.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
And one thing I do want to mention, during the promos for today's show, I mentioned that you were a midwife. You want to, and altogether I got that wrong, because a birth doula and a midwife are two different species altogether. What are the differences between the two?
That's correct. That's one of the most common misperceptions about doulas, is that they are the same as midwives. Midwives are primary healthcare providers during pregnancy and birth. They're alternatives to OB care. Mm-hmm. OBs are highly skilled surgeons, whereas midwives are experts in protecting and promoting straightforward childbirth. They do perform clinical tasks like taking blood pressure, measuring cervical changes, and responding to emergencies that doulas don't do. Doulas are a new name for an old role. We help women in childbirth. This has been going on from time immemorial. We're professional birth companions. We don't give medical support. Instead, we give informational, emotional, and physical support for a woman and her partner around the time of birth.
Okay, so, but is a birth doula involved in the delivery of the baby?
Yes, we support women in through the emotional and spiritual and relational changes that occur around the time of birth. Mm-hmm. So we see birth not just as a medical event, but as an event with far-reaching implications for a woman and her whole family throughout their whole life. So this emotional event merits not just medical care, but also care in these other areas.
Okay, I think that would be the one concern people would have. They hear about, say, for example, midwives or birth doulas in your case, and they're thinking, where's the doctor? There has to be a doctor involved here someplace. And there is medical assistance involved in this?
Absolutely. So women make their own choices as regards the medical care that they receive during their pregnancy, and doulas just stand alongside them. Whatever choices they make, informed decision-making.
Okay, well, tell you what, now this movie that's going to be happening over at the Racine Public Library on the 23rd, Birth Story, it's a film about the counterculture legend, of Ina Mae Gaskin and friends, who on a caravan crossing the U.S. in 1970 started to deliver each other's babies. That movie again, Ina Mae Gaskin and the Farm Midwives, or Birth Story, is the actual title of the movie. So how does this movie relate to what you and the others in the Birth Doulas of Racine and Kenosha do? Have you had an opportunity? I'm thinking you had an opportunity to see the movie.
I haven't yet.
Oh, really?
It was
Okay.
released in 2012, so this will be a first for me as well.
Okay, interesting. So altogether, what will happen is you'll have an opportunity to have a really interesting point of commentary after the movie, because of what you see on the screen, and then eventually what you see there and what happens with you during the real life situation of a birth.
Right, and we will be holding a question and answer session with local providers. Both midwives and doulas will be on that panel following the event.
Okay, well, you want to know something? Midwives, you mentioned that the midwives, birth doulas, have been around since time immemorial. What are some of the reasons why they ended up, basically fading from a lot, most births, not just in our country, but in many cases other nations around the world?
Well, that's a good question. I see it as a result of cultural, societal change, where at one point it would be a woman's sisters, mother, neighbors who would gather around her to support her at the time of birth. And unfortunately, those structures aren't necessarily available to everyone today. So we're stepping in as professional birth companions where that support is no longer organically available to women.
And now how many are in your group of birth doulas in our area?
We're 8 and growing. At each meeting we have, there are more doulas who are interested in joining.
Okay, now in order to become one, say for example, there's somebody interested, gosh, this birth doula thing sounds interesting. What's the process of, I'm thinking you have to be certified along.
That's correct.
And what's the process there?
If a woman chooses to be certified, and all the birth doulas of Racine and Kenosha are either certified or certifying, that means in the process of considering certification or becoming certified, since it is a fairly lengthy process. There are various certifying organizations, the most famous of which in the U.S. is Doulas of North America, and they have quite a stringent process of certification involving study, workshops, attending birth, feedback from other birth professionals.
So you get the organization of birth doulas here. It's interesting too. I mentioned this to Laura before she went on the air. I had never heard the term birth doulas before, and not too long after I ended up talking to Laura, arranging her to be on the program this morning, I ended up going on to LinkedIn, the networking website pretty much for businesses, and I noticed that one of the people you should know that I had on the list was a gal who billed herself as a business doula. So altogether, when we're in her situation, it's helping entrepreneurs birth their businesses. And with a birth doula, it's a whole different situation, albeit there are some people who probably treat their new businesses like a newborn baby and all that, and probably should. But with what's going on here with this situation, it's a lot more intimate, it's a lot more, this is life-giving as well as an opportunity to really, you are a very important person in the birth mother's life at that point, correct?
I would say so. Doulas do make a big difference. Studies show that the presence of a doula increases a mother's satisfaction with her birth experience, reduces rates of unnecessary and unwanted medical intervention, and even shortened labor.
Interesting.
And the father of birth doula research, Dr. Kennel, said that if a doula were a drug, it would be unethical not to use it. So that's a case of a doctor prescribing a doula in every case.
And speaking of fathers, what are the, for a lot of the fathers that you deal with, what are their reactions to you and other birth doulas being a part of the process?
There's another common misperception that a doula may replace a partner, a woman's partner in the birth process, and that's really not the case. We also support partners in the process of birth, and quite often fathers and doulas end up being best buddies by the end of the birth process. Well,
that's wonderful. And it's really something, because obviously you get an awful lot about what's going on with that as well.
Yes,
in the process. It's Laura Jansson joining us, and she is the co-founder of Birth Doulas of Racine in Kenosha. Don't forget, that's going to be July 23rd, the Birth Story movie at the Racine Public Library. And Laura, we thank you for joining us on the morning news here at WRJN, and continued success and good luck with your recruitment efforts as well as your efforts in the birth doula world.
Thank you. Please check us out at RacineKenoshaDoulas.com.
Very good. Nice way to wrap this segment up on the morning news here at News Talk 1400.